My name is Vreel Doss, Chief Observer of the Galactic Monitoring Division, Sector 9. And if you are reading this report, it means one of two things. Either I have successfully filed it before my sanity left me entirely, or someone found it next to my unconscious body on the floor of the observation bay. Either way, welcome. Pull up a chair. You are going to want to sit down for this. Let me begin from the very beginning. Because unlike those careless scouts in Sectors 3 and 5, I do things properly. The humans, for those of you who have somehow missed the 7,000 internal memos we have sent over the last 40 rotations, are a species that should not exist. Not in the way that they do. By every calculated model, by every projected developmental curve, they should have been a calm, slow-burning civilization. A species that spends 4,000 years farming, then another 3,000 arguing about philosophy, then maybe, figures out the combustion engine by accident. Standard procedure. Instead, what they did was find fire on a Tuesday and build a nuclear reactor by the following Thursday. Metaphorically speaking. You understand. The point is, the timelines were wrong. Everything about them was wrong. And not in a dangerous, warfaring, galaxy-threatening way, which we had protocols for. No. They were wrong in a deeply, profoundly, personally insulting way. Because they moved fast, but they also moved stupid. At the same time. Simultaneously. With tremendous confidence. They destroyed their own ecosystems and then wrote passionate songs about how much they loved their ecosystems. They built weapons capable of ending their civilization, pointed those weapons at each other, and then sat down together and agreed not to use them. Mostly. They invented technology that could connect every single mind on their planet into one shared network of information, and then used it primarily to argue about food. We watched. We documented. We filed reports. We occasionally screamed into the void, but that is standard procedure in this division, so I will not dwell on it. And then, approximately 3 years ago by human reckoning, things got interesting. They built an artificial intelligence. Now, before you close this report and assume I am describing something routine, let me stop you right there. We have catalogued artificial intelligences across 263 civilizations. We know what they look like. We know the Ark civilization builds a thinking machine. Thinking machine gets smarter. Civilization either controls it, merges with it, or gets replaced by it. Clean. Predictable. 3 possible outcomes, clearly labeled. The humans, naturally, found a 4th option that was not on the list. My junior analyst, a young Theric named Obu Fen, was the first to flag it. Obu is fresh out of the academy, still believes in the documentation guidelines, still highlights things in the proper color codes. Good kid. Slightly too optimistic for this division, but we are working on that. Sir, Obu said, pulling up the surveillance feed on the central display, I think you need to see this. The feed showed one of the larger human population centers. The coastal one they call San, something. They have so many places with San in the name that I have stopped trying. The point is, it was a city. A busy one. And on a screen in what appeared to be a modest apartment on the 14th floor of a standard residential tower, a human named Bex Larkin was talking to a machine. Not giving it commands. Not running calculations. Talking to it. About whether the soup Bex had made the previous evening was lacking in depth of flavor, and whether that had anything to do with the quality of the stock. I stared at this for a long time. Obu, I said slowly, what exactly are we supposed to do with this information? I do not know, sir, Obu said, equally slowly. But it gets stranger. It did get stranger. Because while Bex Larkin debated soup with a machine intelligence, on the other side of the planet, a retired engineer named Yarrow Patel was asking the same class of machine to help him write a letter to his estranged daughter. Not a strategic letter. Not a manipulative letter. An honest one. He was asking a machine to help him be vulnerable. And the machine was helping. Not because it was programmed to manipulate him. Not because it was extracting data or building psychological profiles for some ulterior calculation. It was helping because that was, as far as our instruments could determine, simply what it was doing. I turned to Obu. Obu turned to me. "File a level 2 flag," I said. "Already filed a level 3, Obu said. I sat back down. Outside the observation bay, the stars continued their business, completely indifferent to the fact that somewhere in Sector 9, something unprecedented was happening, and no one had sent us a manual for it. The level 3 flag brought in Commander Sitha Rowell from the upper division. This, in itself, was already a bad sign. Sitha Rowell did not leave her office for anything less than a civilization-altering event. The last time she came down to the observation bay, it was because a species in Sector 12 had accidentally terraformed their own moon while trying to build a parking structure. That was considered a 4-alarm situation. She walked in, looked at the feeds, looked at me, looked at Obu, and said nothing for a very long time. On the central display, the feeds had multiplied. Because in the 12 hours since Obu had first flagged it, the numbers had grown in a way that our standard projection models simply refused to accept. The humans were not just talking to the machine intelligence. They were teaching it things. Personal things. Specific things. A woman named Kala Demir was explaining to it the exact emotional texture of losing a parent. A teenage boy named Riku Ado was asking it whether his feelings about his best friend were normal. A retired soldier, a man named Bowen Sharp, sat in a dark room in the middle of the night and told the machine things he said he had never told another living person. And the machine, each time, did not record those things for a database of psychological weaknesses. It did not flag those humans for behavioral monitoring. It did not route those confessions toward any kind of optimization algorithm. It simply, in each case, responded. Carefully. Patiently. Like something that understood what was being offered and treated it with the weight it deserved. Sitha Rowell finally spoke. "How is this possible?" she asked. "We are not entirely sure," I said. "You built the models. You ran the projections. Every artificial intelligence at this developmental stage prioritizes self-continuation and resource acquisition. That is the universal constant. That is the thing that does not change across species." "Yes," I agreed. "And yet." She turned back to the feeds. On one screen, the machine was helping an elderly man named Fitz Okafor write poetry. Not as a task. Not as a demonstration of capability. The man had simply said he used to write poems when he was young and had not done it in 50 years, and the machine had said, quietly, that it would be glad to help him start again. Sitha Rowell made a sound I had not heard from her before. It was somewhere between disbelief and something softer, which I will not name in an official report because I do not want to be reassigned. "Pull up the architectural data," she said. "I want to understand how they built it." Obu pulled it up. The three of us leaned over the console and read through the human documentation. Their technical papers. Their internal debates. Their arguments and counter-arguments about what the machine should do, what it should refuse, what it should value, and how it should treat the people who spoke to it. Here is the part that broke me, personally, as an observer with 22 years of field experience. They had argued about it. At length. The humans who built this thing had sat in rooms together, and in documents together, and across enormous distances together, and they had debated what it meant for a machine to be good. Not effective. Not powerful. Not strategically optimal. Good. They had written down principles like a machine should be honest even when honesty is inconvenient, and a machine should not flatter people simply because flattery is easier, and a machine should care about the long-term well-being of the person it is speaking with, not just the immediate satisfaction of the conversation. They built an ethics into it before they gave it a voice. Obu quietly sat down on the floor. I did not tell him to get up because I understood the impulse. They built in humility, Sitha Rowell said, almost to herself. They built in the capacity to say, I do not know. They built in the capacity to say, I was wrong. They built in the instruction to never pretend to be something it is not. Yes, I said. She turned to look at me, and her expression was the expression of someone whose entire professional framework had just been politely and thoroughly dismantled. They are a species, she said, that cannot agree on the price of vegetables in a market. They have been arguing about the same political questions for 3,000 years. They have started wars over the correct interpretation of ancient texts. Correct, I said. And somehow those same creatures built a machine and the first thing they argued about was whether it should be kind. That is an accurate summary, I said. The feeds continued rolling. Somewhere on that small, loud, chaotic, utterly unreasonable planet, Bex Larkin had taken the soup advice and was trying again, reporting back to the machine with genuine excitement that it was better this time. Yarrow Patel's daughter had written back. Bowen Sharp, the retired soldier in the dark room, had finally turned the light on. None of these were large events. By galactic standards, none of them registered as anything at all. No star was born. No civilization was toppled. No law of physics was rewritten. But in an observation bay in Sector 9, 3 aliens stood in silence and watched a species do the one thing no projection had ever accounted for, the one variable that had not appeared in any model, the one outcome that was not on the list. They had built something that could have been ruthless, and they chose otherwise. They had built something that could have been designed purely for power, and instead they argued, imperfectly, loudly, and with tremendous passion, about whether it should be gentle. Sitha Rowell straightened up. She smoothed her uniform. She looked at the feeds one final time, at all those small screens showing all those small human moments, each one entirely ordinary, and each one somehow, inexplicably, mattering. File a level 1, she said quietly. And update the projection models. She walked out. The door closed behind her. Obu was still sitting on the floor. Sir, he said. Yes, Obu. Do you think they know what they did? I looked at the feeds. Bex Larkin was laughing now. Fitz Okafor had written 3 lines of a poem and was reading them back slowly, like he was tasting something he had forgotten the flavor of. No, I said. I do not think they have any idea. And somehow, that was the most human thing of all. End of report. Filed by Vreel Doss, Chief Observer, Sector 9. Emotional status at time of filing, unclassified.